To really get a handle on a figure like Salahuddin, you've got to understand the world he was born into. And let me tell you, it wasn't a world of unity and strength. It was a world of absolute chaos, deep division, and decay. So let's set the stage. Let's look at this fractured world that was waiting for a hero. This quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? Forget a united front against outsiders. The real war was happening on the inside. This was a ruthless, ugly struggle for personal power and wealth. And this rivalry was literally tearing their world apart, leaving it completely vulnerable.
But here's the thing you have to remember. It wasn't always this way, not even close. To really appreciate how far they'd fallen, we first need to look at the incredible heights they fell from. So let's start with what we now call the Golden Age.
So for centuries, the Islamic world was led by these powerful empires, right? They were called caliphates. You had the early Rashidun, then the expansionist Umayyads, but eventually, power was consolidated under the Abbasids. And it was under their rule that the civilization would hit its absolute peak.
And what's just incredible is the sheer scope of what they achieved. This wasn't just about military power. Their capital, Baghdad, became the intellectual center of the entire world. It was this vibrant hub for science, philosophy, art. I mean, think about it. This era gave the world things like algebra and massive leaps in astronomy. It was, in every single sense of the word, a golden age.
So the big question is, what went wrong? How does a civilization that's so advanced, so brilliant, just start to break apart? Well, the answer starts with one massive division, a split that just cracked the Islamic world right down the middle.
Right when the Abbasids seemed to be at the top of their game, a new challenger appeared on the scene. And this wasn't just another king trying to grab some land. No, this was an ideological rival, and their rise signaled the beginning of the end for any real sense of unity.
In this slide lays it out perfectly. On one side, you had the established Abbasids in Baghdad, representing the Sunni tradition. And on the other, you had the up-and-coming Fatimids in Egypt, who were leaders of a really powerful Shia movement. All of a sudden, the Islamic world had two caliphs, two centers of power, and two competing visions for the future. And they ended up fighting each other as fiercely as they'd fight any outside enemy.
You really can't overstate the impact of this. With the two most powerful Muslim empires basically locked in this bitter civil war, their collective strength was just shattered. It created this huge power vacuum and left the entire region dangerously exposed.
But the problem wasn't just this big split on the map. That division created a sort of rot from within. What rushed in to fill that power vacuum? Well, it was nothing more than a crippling, all-consuming lust for power.
And this rot just started to spread everywhere. Selfishness, this hunger for personal gain, it started to replace the sense of duty that built the great empires in the first place. And in this new, toxic political climate, the competent, genuine leaders, they were just shoved out of the way.
And the result was, well, pretty much what you'd expect. The source puts it bluntly. A new generation of rulers took over who were just completely unfit to lead. They were corrupt, they were inept, and they were focused only on their own wealth, while everything crumbled around them.
Having an enemy at the gates is one thing, but having an enemy show up to find those gates unlocked with all the guards busy fighting each other, that's a whole different story. And you can bet that this deep internal weakness did not go unnoticed. The Crusaders arriving from Europe saw this opportunity immediately. They weren't facing a united superpower. They were facing two weakened rival empires. So their strategy was simple but devastatingly effective. Just play the two sides against each other and dismantle the great states piece by piece.
And here you see the final result of all that infighting and decay. The once mighty Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad was basically reduced to a hollow, symbolic title. No real power left. Meanwhile, the Fatimids in Egypt were just imploding from internal rebellions. Both of these great powers were now just shadows of what they used to be.
So this is the world we're left with. A world where the very idea of unity is just a distant memory. The concept of working together for a common cause, it was totally buried under layers and layers of rivalry and selfishness. It really was the darkest of times.
But it's in moments of the deepest darkness, isn't it, that people start to hope for a hero. When all seems lost, they start looking for a savior. And as we're about to see, in this truly desperate hour, the stage was finally being set.
According to our source, out of all this chaos and corruption, a figure was destined to rise up.
Someone with the vision, the piety, and yet the strength to mend all these fractures, to remind people what they'd lost, and to lead them once again.
A figure who would rise from this broken world, who would challenge the Crusaders, and who would reunite these great powers under a single banner. The question is, who was he?